verses 11 and 12. Now, I'm going to kind of paraphrase it a little bit. I'm reading from the Message Bible because time has limited me. But God comes to Moses and he tells them that I have seen the struggle of my people and I've come down. And then he said, but I need you to go. And so this is the Message Bible. And Moses says, well, why me? What makes you think that I could ever lead the children of Israel out of Egypt? God says to him in verse 12, he says to go, I'll be with you. And then so in verse 14, so Moses has his objection. Moses keeps coming back. And Moses says, well, suppose I go to the people of Israel and I tell them, and the God of your father sent me, and they ask me, what is his name? And he says, well, what should I tell him? You know, like, there's times when you say, God, I'm not going to believe you. What's this? And he said, God says, tell him that I am who I am. Amen. Tell the people of Israel, I am that sent you. And so you all that sitting in this room, and God sets opportunities before you, they can ask you, what's your backing? Who gave you the right? Where's your license? I am that sent me. I am. He's behind me. I'm packing. I am. And so when we see that, now I know we go to school and all of those things, yes. But at the same time, it is what God says. When he says it, I got you. I am. So he has I am behind him. And then now Moses comes up again. He says, well, they won't trust me. Come on now. They're not gonna trust me. They're gonna say, what kind of what says God? And then so God says, okay, what I want you to do right now is take your staff, drop the staff, and immediately what happened? The staff turned to a serpent, right? And then so then he's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I see now, I'd be like, Lord. Well, I'm scared of snakes. That's the only thing I'm really scared of. I'm not a lizard, I feel it, a frog, I feel it. But a snake, I don't know about that. So, and then God tells him to reach down and to grab it. Now, I ain't gonna grab it. But then he says, and he has to trust it. He grabs the snake, and then it turns back to a staff. Then God says to him, now stick your hand in your bosom, pulls it out. Oh, I got leprosy. And then he says, put it back in, put it back in. And it goes back to normal. Okay, see, this is all the miracles. God is like letting him know, I got you, I am. Okay, yeah. So then God says to him, so grab and do all those things. Okay, so now he sees all this. And then Moses says to him, in verse, it's like hard to see, right? And then Moses says, so Moses raised another objection to God. And he says, Master, I don't talk well. I don't speak well. I have a stutter. And that's for all of us in this room. We all have a stutter. Come on. There's something that when God sets opportunity before us in our calling, we'll say, well, I'm not educated enough. I got these kids. I'm my husband. I don't have the income. I don't have. Lord, did you forget? Did you really forget God? That's something wrong with me. My family called me crazy already. There's something wrong with me. And so, but then God said something, and this is what God showed me, and I miss this every time when I read it. That God said to him, he says, don't worry about your mouth. I've made your mouth. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make you have eloquent speech. I'm going to do a miracle. Amen. And this is what I want to say to us in this room. That we don't be a hindrance or a blockage to what God fully wants to do. God wanted to do, I'm going to say that again. That we don't be the hindrance or the blockage to get in the way when God wanted to do that full miracle. He wanted to do Ephesians 30:21 or Ephesians 3:20 when he says that I will do what? The exceedingly, the abundantly above all you can ask or think. And so God was saying this to Moses, and guess what? Moses got in the way to where God says, okay, forget about it. He had 4 times, and this was the last one. God says, forget about it, get Aaron. Go ahead and get Aaron. And because what God was showing here is that if I You can stick your hand in and it can turn back to being normal. Drop down the staff. Can we do that right now? Like, drop down the staff and it turns to a serpent, right? Do all of those things, then surely I can fix what's wrong with you.
Amen.
I will help you. And this is what I want to say to you and I today. Is for us not to block it. Another thing I want to talk about is going over, let's get back to the front part, where Mordecai, he comes to Esther. So we know that there's times Mordecai comes to Esther. We know that Haman, the wicked Haman, comes to want to destroy the Jews, right? And so here, he comes to her and she's like, wait a minute. Here comes this opportunity that God's bringing. It's a big one. She's like, no, I'm gonna die. If I go to the king, I'm gonna die. Who wanna die? I'm gonna die. And so, but then he says this to her. He says, well, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Now, when Mordecai said that, he didn't have the Bible there listed because she was there for such a time as this. Because when we look at Psalms 37:23, when it says that the steps of a good man or woman is ordered by the Lord. So wherever God has set us up, whatever he has put in front of you, God is saying you can do it. Because I have gone before you and I pushed back the darkness. And I remember being in a conference with Ron Barkey. And I remember him talking about that there was a time where this missionary came to him some years later. I said to him, he said, you know, God called me to Africa. Told me to go to Africa. And he said, I didn't listen. I told God no. And he said, I told God no. And so Ron Barkey was encouraging us to listen to God because he's not going to stop. When it is time, when God says, I need you to do it, if you don't do it, he's going to get another person. He's not going to be like, oh, I remember one time I talked in this message before, it says, we always got to understand. There's always somebody. So if we don't do it, it's like, up. Come on, Bobby. Come on, Jamie. Come on, Billy. They will do it. And so we have to know that God is saying, I need you to do it. And look at it as a blessing. That God can look at us, that in our own infinite and just our own little, when we just confused, and God comes in us and says, this is what I want to do in your life. Is this helping anybody?
Yeah.
So here, I want to talk about when you step out on the opportunities that God set before you. That's any opportunities that He put. Can start off teaching Sunday school, discipleship, cleaning the bathrooms, whatever it is, work in the nursery, God help you. I love the babies, but that's not my calling there. But, and in all of those things. But when you take the opportunity that God set before you, you will soar. Amen. You will soar. And when you think about soaring versus flying, you think about the airplanes, they have their wings. You think about the birds, they have their wings, and they're trying to get to point A to B. But the thing about soaring is with a little effort. You don't need a lot of effort to soar. Thinking about this, let's think about the eagles. The eagle, when the storm comes, it stretches out its wings, right? And then it just rides the wind.
Yes.
And with him riding the wind, because it's trouble, you know, all the rest of the chickens and all the they kind of look over. The eagle says, you know what? He fans his wing and he begins to soar. And he's on the wind. And he can fly up to 10,000 feet. It's with a little effort. It's no stress in it. And so here, this is what I want to show you, that when we think of the wind will represent God. It will represent supernatural power of God. So when we look at the word wind, so when we're talking about soaring, and we're looking at the word wind, come with me here. Genesis chapter 1, verses 2. God's ruach, his wind, his spirit, his breath moved upon the waters. We can look at Acts 2:2. When and suddenly there was a mighty rushing wind. The thing about this wind of God is going to be supernatural. It is going to be powerful, intangible. Then we look over at Numbers 11:31, and the Lord brought the quails when the children of Israel got tired. We're tired of this manna. And he brought quails by the wind. And then we see over in Ezekiel 37, he brought the 4 winds, this was the power of God, from the dry bones that was in the valley, and they began to do what? And they stood up because of the power of God. We look at Exodus 14:15-31, when the children of Israel was caught between the Egyptians and the Red Sea. Can't you just take your mind back there? Wow, we gonna die. And they was caught right there. But then the Lord says, stand still. And what happens? He brings an east strong wind and divide the Red Sea. And the children of Israel walk across the Red Sea. This is the power of God. So what I want to say to you right now is, if you stay with the wind of God, He will take you to places that you never dreamed. You will soar. But when you don't go with the wind of God, you will be mediocre, you will be less than. But when you go with the wind of God, amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Teaching class. But when you go with the wind of God, look at the one next to you, say, stay with the wind. Stay with the wind. Stay with the wind. Oh my gosh. Stay with God. And one thing I love about it is that God never leaves us. He's always there, waiting for, even the times if we walk away, He is always with us. Thinking about the supernatural power of God. Going over to Isaiah 40:31. And it says that He knows, reading the Message Bible, and He knows everything inside out. He energizes those who get tired. He gives fresh strength to the dropouts. For even the young people tired, they drop out. And the young folks in their prime stumble and fall. But those who wait upon God get a fresh start. They spread their wings and they soar like the eagles. They run and they don't get tired. And they walk and they don't lag behind. Now, this is a supernatural power of God because, we have young people, we tell them, like, the last one we had a young guy, and I said, he took off running. He's young, and I tried to run with him. I'm going to get tired. Like, wait, man, hold on. But God is saying in this is that it's going to not even make sense that when the young person's supposed to not get tired, they're going to get tired. But because He is involved, because the wind of God is with us, we're going to soar like never before. What looks like it should have slipped through your fingers will look like it was down for the count, will look like it was all over. It's like, wait. You're back up in the 3 days, or you're back up in the 3 months because of the power of God. Now, I want to go to the parable of the talent. I didn't get a talent. I'm sorry. Okay. The parable, Matthew 25, verses 14 to 26. But I'm just going to paraphrase that. So we know that the master got left, leaving, and he had his 3 servants. And he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all something. So he gave one talent, and he gave one 2 talent, and then he gave one 3 talent. And then he left. And then one of the guys said something. And so we're going to start to pick it up, and we know that he buried it. And so he says, the servant gave him the 1, and he says, he said to the master, he says, look, I was afraid, so I hid it. I was here. So how many times in our lives have we done the same thing? That when God gives us something, every one of us has a gift. Everyone is going to have that opportunity that He's going to set before us. We look at a lot of times like the pastors, and even with Apostle Jim Rayleigh, and people, what they flow in, and we says, you know what? I'm never going to be like that. But what is in your hand? What has God given you? Your neighborhood, that those young ladies, those young guys, just that guy that walking down the street, almost like he's coming and going, and you just say something to him and take that young man and mentor him. There's things that God has set before us, and there's times like, well, I didn't even have an opportunity, and God is like, the opportunities are right before you. You just got to reach out and grab them. And I remember that one time I was like, God, I was like, Lord, what? I remember, because Pastor Brady was my pastor, and I'm still a Lord of the house. And I remember being in one of his lessons, and he was talking about the opportunities and things. And I was sitting there, and God spoke to me right away. He said, Shemaiah, the opportunities I have before you is right in front of you. Amen. For you, all you have to do is reach out and grab them. And I was looking at that time for just for people to come to me, and God is like, you have to reach out and grab them. So in one of those things, I remember that when I got done with that, I ran out and I called one of the ladies, because we used to do things for the homeless. There we picked up the homeless and gave them baths and fed them and all these things. And I remember calling the leader and says, look, I want to be a part of the homeless team where I can come in and preach. This was when I first started. When taking the opportunities looked like nothing, right? We're going to talk about that. And so in that, but he was afraid. But each of us have a talent. God's given us some of his gifts of singing, different things that he has put in us, administration, all of those things. Nothing is small. Sometimes people say, well, all I do is I have the gift of helps. You know, helps is powerful. Yeah, I just help people. Well, there's times when the pastor might need something and you run and do that, or help the meeting. It's wherever it is, whatever God has given us, he has given us something to be effective. And so we see that, so we don't want to be like this, where we take the opportunities and we bury what God has given us. And we sit on it. And we act like we don't have nothing. And it's like somebody says, anybody, or there's times you're sitting on it and God can be dealing with you. And you're like, I ain't gonna say that. No, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't saying nothing. I'm gonna sit far in the back. Don't look at me. But it's so funny because then God still like comes and pulls you right out. It's like, oh my God. And then it's like you cut all the weeds out and you look like a ball and you go, oh my God. But that's what God says he does. Like he exalts us. Because if we're humble and if we yield to him, he will exalt us. And just even letting you know with Hebrews 11:6, sometimes people say, well, why does all these opportunities come to me? I don't want nothing. I don't like to talk. I don't even like people. What is this? But then when we look at Hebrews 11:6, and he says that if he's a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So when you're seeking God, he's just going to do just like Boaz did in the field and kept dropping handfuls of blessings and these opportunities because of his favor. Is because you have put him as the highest priority in your life. So look for God to even do that. So if I can be funny and say, so if you don't want that, then just stop doing anything. But no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to continue to let God take you to places that you never dreamed of. And one of the things I want to show you though with the talent is that with the one that he gave one talent to, and look, you know, just think, oh, it's just one talent. But when we did the research on it, that one talent that he gave him was worth $600,000. That was what the one talent was worth. And then when you look at the second one had the two talent, it was worth $1.5 million. And then the other talent with the one with the three, it was worth $3 million. So you see that there. So what I wanted to show you is that when God give us stewardship, it's not like it's less than. Every single opportunity has value. Every opportunity has value. I say that again. Every opportunity has value. Now I remember the times when I was cleaning the bathroom. I said that to the other one yesterday, and go into the bathroom. And this is before, because I knew God called me to preach the gospel at 7 years old, looking for God to open the doors. And all I can say is I just continued to stay faithful. I worked in the pawn shop for 15 years, and there was this constant, Lord, what is happening? And then we'll get into it, and God but it was starting off with just the things that we seem small. And I remember cleaning the bathroom in the church and going in there, somebody had diarrhea, had pooped all over the toilet, and you're like, my God, what in the world? That's the worst thing to do. You're like, and I just pray for people, and you're like, I gotta clean this all and stinking stuff. And it's like, but even in that no opportunity, God looks at that. What does Job says? He says, though the beginning was small, yet the latter will greatly increase. And so in that, to show you that nothing is too small. Nothing is too small. If you can you pass those bags out for me now? Nothing is too small. So as she passed these out, we're talking about the different opportunities and the calling, whatever it is that you all sit in this room and God has called you. And a lot of times we don't feel equipped in that. So can you, I'm gonna grab a bag. So while you passing them out, I'm gonna grab a bag. Oh, that too, just in case. Oh.
No, I'll help you.
Oh, you'll help?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You just keep on preaching, sister.
Okay.
I mean, teaching.
Teach and preach it.
Okay. So what we're passing out, not passing out little hand 5 bags. But when you think about the mustard seed, can you see this from my finger? Right? Is this small? Is everybody getting a bag yet? Everybody still getting it? So you see how small? You can't even see the mustard seed from here. And this is sometimes the opportunities, because when I first started talking to you, I talked to you about Moses. That was this big giant freeing the people. Then you have Esther saving a whole nation. These big opportunities. That there's times, everybody has a bag, yeah? There's times though, it starts off just like this.
Amen.
You don't do nothing. You have this hand, guess what I got? You got nothing in your hand. I got nothing. That's what you got. Nothing. Yeah, right. But you know, we've heard that when people say something, you ain't got nothing, you can't add nothing, who you gonna be, what you think you got, what you got, nothing. But if you got a size of a mustard seed, we thank God for the word, and it says, you will be able, with this little thing, you will be able to do what? Move mountains, right? Move mountains with this little seed. Now I want to talk to you about a few examples of something being small. So think about Rahab. Rahab, prostitute. You can find that over. You can find that over in. I have that. That's a little different. You can find that over Rahab's story. Genesis, yes. Exodus. You can find it in Exodus here. She was a harlot. But with that one acting out on the now, she just thinking, she just helping 2 Israelites running, trying to save them. But because of that one small seed, right? She saved herself, generations to come, and herself, and not only that, but then how did she find herself? In the lineage of Jesus Christ. And the great-great-grandmother of Jesus, my God. And not only that, she ends up marrying a prince, and she becomes a princess. And so it comes from a little seed. Right? Okay, let's look at Elisha. He's just mowing the lawn, doing what he got to do. And here come Elijah walking by him, and he throws a mantle on him. And then he's like, well, let me go and say bye to my family. And he says, but I'm coming. And he follows him. Didn't look like nothing. He just saying, I'm just going to follow him. What happened to Elisha? Oh my gosh. Just acting on the now. No opportunity waits. That's what God is saying. No opportunity waits. He runs and he goes with him, and he gets a double portion of the miracles. We know that Elijah did 16, and that's the thing about the word of God. And we see Elisha did 36. That is the double portion right there of the double in that. So we see through the small opportunities what the Lord can do. We can even see with Jael. Jael just calls herself helping the Israelites. Sisera was in command, evil Sisera. He runs to her, just a little small thing. He's like, I just want some milk. Thank God she had the butter. She had the milk. So come on in here, son. Something really small. But smoked that man back to kingdom come. And ended up delivering the children of Israel from their oppressor. That's what I want to talk to you about the small things. Now here, I need somebody's help right quick. I forgot this. Okay. But I need these back. I just want to give them to a few people and they can pass it down. So from that seed, oh my gosh. From that little seed, look, can't see nothing. But now look at it. What the Lord has done. And this is what the wind of God and his presence do. Something that don't make no sense. This is what the Lord can do. When he says something to you that calls your knees to smoke together, your heart to beat, but he wants to take you to here. And just thinking about those things like I talked about in my own life, cleaning the bathrooms and then even I remember doing the homeless ministry. I'll tell you a story of that. Doing that, and I remember I was preaching there. I did that for like 4 years, and I was preaching that, doing it. Well, yeah, I was preaching, and I was preaching, and I was crawling across the floor, and I was doing an illustration of crawling through junk, a mess or something. And this man, I'm sweating bullets, and I'm preaching my heart out. And this guy walks over me. Now he not moved by the presence of God. He wants those donuts. And so he gets up. He goes and he grabs the donuts. I'm like, okay. And then, but you got to, I keep going. Then I remember the time I was preaching my heart out, and these two big guys got up and they really threw a blow. And then they started turning over the tables and cursing, and I'm still going, God will do it. He will bless it. And they just killing each other. And I'm like, I'm trying to stay focused by the Lord Jesus. And then the people have to come and stop doing all those things. And I remember I said, I'm done with this. I ain't doing this anymore. These people don't want this mess. I said, not mess. I said, these people don't want this. I said, I'm wasting my time. I was like, Lord, what are you doing to me? What's happening? And it was, what's going on? And then I remember, and I said, I'm going to talk to Pastor Jen, and I'm going to tell her I'm done. She was the leader. And I said, I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'm going to take a rest. And I was going to do like God said on the seventh day, he rested. He came to me and said, no, you're not resting. He said, no, you're going to stay right there. But God has something in store for me that I didn't even see. Isn't that the blessing part that we see in part? When God brings things our way, when he shows us stuff, when he puts things for us, it's just a little thing. That's what Paul said we see in part. We're like, but God, even my own life right now, I'm like, God, give me all, just give it all to me. Let me see, God, is it really going to happen, Jesus? No, I need you to trust me, keep walking it out. But but we see this is how God, I just lost my point of thought. What was that? We see in part. We see in part. And so in that I remember Deanna, well, jumping a little ahead, but I remember Deanna, I got a text from her and saying, hey, these pastors are hiring. And I reached out to these pastors, and they were Pastor Terry and Pastor Debbie Howe, and they hired me, my first time ever having a staff position. They took a chance on me, and I served with them for 5 years, and God just did wonders with the discipleship and all of those different things. Just down to those times when we step out on the now. And even now, God has called me out because I was on staff, and God called me out of that and said, now I want you to fully do what I called you to do at the age of 7. I want you to fully go into full-time evangelism, start preaching and start speaking. So God has opened those doors. But you know what? Even though when we say that, we celebrate, well, those are still things that we have to walk through. Yeah. Because what I tell you is that every time God sets something before us, it's never going to be easy. He's never going to make it to the point where you're like, okay, I can just flip this up and it's easy. No, it is going to be a process. There's going to be times you're going to be like, God, please remove this from me. What's happening? Be just like what Paul says over in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, there's times like, God, take it away. I don't want it. I can't do it. Get rid of it. And that's the one thing that I love about this, is that they didn't say actually what was his thorn in the flesh. Because we all gonna have a thorn in the flesh. There's gonna be something that's gonna keep us on our knees. There's gonna be something that's gonna have us turn our plates down. There's going to be something that we're going to have. And so even in that, when God says, he tells Paul what he tells him. He says, my grace is sufficient for you. I'm going to give you the power to overcome your weakness. And then what I'm going to do is, when we look at 1 Corinthians 10:13, he says, I will take the temptation with the temptation. I will make a way of escape. I'm going to have you where you put me on the inside of you, and then you're going to be able to stand up. You're going to put on your armor, Ephesians 6:10 and 11, and down to prayer and a helmet and a breastplate. And your sword of the Spirit, get back, Satan. You're going to have those things. Spirit of fear, you have to go. Amen. Because 2 Timothy 2:7 says that God has given me the spirit of fear, of power, of love, and a sound mind.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen.
And so, I want to let you see that you are equipped.
Yeah.
You have every single thing that you need. And when you don't, God will bring people, because we're never going to do this alone. He's going to bring people to equip us. And those times when you say it's too much, I'm going to quit. There's been times, I've had those recently. I'm done. Oh, I'm done. God is like, you're not done. Because I'm with you. And I'm going to take you to places. And even in our own life, there's times, and I'm just thinking about this. One thing that just came to me right now is the scripture that even as we're walking in those opportunities, when God set things before us, like I said, it's not going to always be gravy. And Psalm 66, verses 10 through 12, the children of Israel is given a victory about how they were taken into captivity and what God has done. He says that you've caused us to go through the fire. You caused us. The Message Bible says you road tested us. You brought it back like, and you road tested us. And then he says, and you have allowed men to walk over our heads. So what he's saying is you have caused us to be overlooked. There's times when we've been misunderstood, we've been backstabbed, we've been hurt, we've been broken, we've been bruised, and all of these things. Like, God, well, I'm just trying to do what you want me to do. I'm just trying to walk out my calling. But then in verse 12 it says, you allowed it to happen because you brought us into a wealthy place. And that is where God is wanting to take us, is to get us to our wealthy place. Now, I'm not saying like to have $1 million in our house and the things. God will bless us, and we might even get $1 million. But it's down to that things with the prosperity of the love, the joy, the peace, and when we just have just the things and all the things that we need, even when it's down to finances. If we're not millionaires, but there's times when we might look like our feet is gonna touch the ground. You know, I love amusement parks. I'm a big kid, so but I hate roller coasters. I can't never do nothing that's gonna go upside down. So, but that you guys know about that swing that goes around and then it looks like it's gonna touch the ground. And so I remember the time I was on this swing and it was going around, and this lady, and I promise you, I thought I hollered, lady, watch out! I'm gonna hit you in the head! Get out of the way! I'm screaming. I'm going around, I'm just hollering, get out of the way! But it did hit her. And there's times when with that swing, and it looked like my feet, like I said, oh my gosh, I'm gonna break my ankle. My ankle's gonna break right off. I'm about to hit the ground. But soon when you think it's about to hit the ground, so when it looks like you're gonna hit the ground, your feet go, and the swing comes up, and it continues to go around. And this is what God is saying, that when you step out on the now, when you do what he says to do, know that even if it look like you flat down, it is done. It is finished. You will rise again. You will rise again. Oh my God. Before the time goes out, you're down at, what is that, 15 and 16 and 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the Savior said, I thought I killed him. I thought he went down. I thought it was over. Puppy got the wing of the heart.
Amen.
Oh my gosh. Just come on, put your hands together for just a minute.
Hallelujah.